COSI, and we're so thankful that we're in COSI's building. That I know Dr. Bertley will not be here today, but he's traveling. But he is such a great host that he made sure that since we have a longer meeting today, that we have salad and sandwiches here. So please make sure you come over and eat the food. We don't want to waste it. You know, I'm part of the local food action plan, and we don't waste food. So please come over and eat, and there's drinks in the back. And so again, I want to just thank you for your service to this commission. I know that there's a lot of other priorities that you have in your life, but you have taken the time to come and be supportive of our Commission on Black Girls. And today I know that the meeting is from 4 to 7. It's longer than normal because we know that we are trying to really move this commission forward. And as you know, right now there are a number of topics that we really do need to cover, and we need to make sure that we have the opportunity to hear from a number of the leaders in different areas. And so, I remember we're now in really what's called the information gathering portion of this, and that means that we're listening. We've had some listening sessions from parents, our girls, our nonprofit organizations. The meetings that we are having as a commission we have subject matter experts coming in and providing information to our commission. And so we've already heard from, people on physical health, teen pregnancy, spiritual health, behavioral health, and today we're going to hear from experts in regards to education. And there'll be a number of presenters from different educational organizations sharing their data on our Black girls. And we're also, in terms of information gathering, we're also starting our focus groups. And we are also, at the end of this meeting today, you will have an opportunity to be able to partake in our survey. And if all goes well, the survey will become live tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the morning. And there'll be lots of girls taking the survey. And you'll hear a little bit more about that later in the meeting, but we're being very strategic about people getting the survey. But before I move further, I know we really never have even a few minutes to just talk amongst ourselves. And if you have any questions about, where we are up to this point, or if you think that there are topics we need to hear from subject matter experts on, we want to just hear your comments. Elsie.
Hi, Elsie Johnson with the YWCA. My question is, I think that we might have broached this a little bit at the first meeting, but is there a minimum number of girls that we're looking to be able to take the survey?
200.
Okay, thank you.
And we want to exceed that goal, but 200 girls. And I do believe, based upon a number of our partnerships that are in this room, that we will exceed that goal. So we will absolutely exceed it, because there isn't a survey like this anywhere in the United States that's focused on just the quality of life. There's different surveys that are focused on Black girls, but on different topics. And so we really want to make sure that we have a robust number of girls to take this survey. Any other thoughts? No? Okay. Well, I think then we'll have some time later on if there's something else that comes up. But we have a number of other topics. We'll be looking at, we'll be looking at, the criminal justice system. We'll have race. There's a number of other topics that we'll hear from subject matter experts that we know are important to the quality of life of our girls. And so with that, welcome to the people that are in the room. Thanks for coming and visiting with us. We appreciate you coming. And again, please partake in the food and drinks. And now we will start our meeting. Pat, thank you. All right, thank you. So we will get started this afternoon. So our first presenter is Alicia Gillison. Please come on forward. And just a couple housekeeping, just easily just click through. And is Ms. Patton here already?
Yes, Ms. Patton is.
Come on over. All right.
All right.
Thank
Click
you so
forward,
much.
Ms.
Yes. And these two ladies are coming forward to give us some very, very fantastic information and data from Columbus City Schools. Ms. Patton is going to present on the work that's done in her specific school. Ms. Gillison is going to give us a wide variety of overview of all of the system-related data information. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you all, and hello, everyone. How are you? Good afternoon. First, I want to say thank you for providing this opportunity for us to share some information about the state of girls in Columbus City Schools. So I want to thank you on behalf of our Board of Education and our interim superintendent. A little bit about Columbus City Schools. Columbus City Schools we were formerly Columbus Public Schools, but we are the largest district in the state of Ohio. We used to put a precursor in front of that and say the largest urban district, but now we are the largest district in the state of Ohio, and we serve over 49,000 students. I use that number because sometimes that number is up and you'll hear 50,000, but we have not dropped below 49,000 in quite some time. So that's a lot of kids when you think about that. And so let's look at our demographics. Who are these 49,000? Our 49,000 kids are made up of, we say black, white, Hispanic, multiracial, Asian, American Indian, and Pacific Islander. Our African American population, black population, 27,681. So you would say we are the majority in Columbus City Schools. And of that 27,000, we have 13,181. 13,181 are black females. 13,181. So if you think about that 13,181 African American black females, you will hear me use those terms interchangeably, but what we're talking about is young ladies that look like me, young ladies, many of that have had the same experiences as I have. Then you look at the workforce, the teachers, and right here I'm primarily looking at teachers. And we have 3,987 teachers, and the majority of our teachers, 2,355, are non-minority. Our minority female teachers, 708, around 16%. And I thought this was relevant because I wanted us to look at the graduation rate, not only relative to Columbus City Schools, but relative to the state of Ohio. Columbus is there in the blue. And you look at our graduation rate, which was 78.1%. The black line next is similar districts, and what that really means is urban districts. Got it? So we are doing better than other urban districts, and then when you look at the green, it's pretty much the suburban districts. So we're not quite there, but we're outperforming graduation-wise in other urban districts. And that's our 4-year graduation rate and our 5-year graduation rate. So I want to talk about graduation count. That 2017 cohort had 2,335 students. I love that because we unleashed 2,335 graduates into the world that year. And of that number, 700 and of the black, there were 1,437, and 783 were black females, 654 black males. immediate college enrollment. Now that these young people are graduating, what are we doing with them? What's the world doing with them, and how are we preparing them or not preparing them? In 2016, 949 students enrolled in college immediately after high school. And of that, 282 were African American females, 254 were black males. And we almost doubled that in 2017. And I can't just boast of doubling it without talking about quickly our partnership with the I Know I Can Foundation, and we have college advisors now in every high school. So when you look at that, we're going in the right direction when we talk about college enrollment. You can't talk about graduation without wondering where are those kids that didn't graduate, and what do those numbers look like, because that's where we really want to put our focus. So our non-grad, we had 655 students that did not graduate in the 4-year or 5-year cohort. And where are they? And what are they doing with their lives? And how can we help and reach back? Of the 655, 342 were black, 173 were female, and 169 were male. So when we look at how our young ladies are performing, and graduating, we're graduating more of them are going to college, but then we're losing more that are not graduating. So those are some of the things that we really need to dig into. Here's an attendance piece. And on this attendance data, what I did was I took 6th grade through 12th grade. And what you will notice, and it's a side-by-side comparison, black females, white females, you will notice a consistent drop. 6th grade, we're up around the 90s, 90.6. But by the time we get to that senior year, 79.4. It drops for white females, but not as drastically. And we've done some of our own research, and in looking into the research and a steady decline, what we find sometimes, because it's never the same, but what we find sometimes is the caregiver phenomena. You are the oldest in the house and you have younger siblings. You're in a single-parent household and you have to care for the children, so your mom or your dad or your grandmother can go to work. So then if someone is sick, then you stay home and you take care of that younger sibling. And in Columbus City schools, our elementary schools start an hour later than our high schools. So if Stephanie was my little sister and I needed to get her to the bus stop, I'm going to miss my first period class pretty much every day, right? So those are some things that we have to take into account, but we can't stop there. We have to continue to dig into why. I mean, that is a significant drop when you look at that. And you look at that and then you think about the students that aren't graduating, right? So these are things that we're looking into in CCS. Now let's look at the discipline data, which was very interesting. And this is 15-16 data. I could get that verified, so that's why I'm using this year. And when we talk about suspensions, please understand this number is occurrences, not actual individuals. And I keep picking on Stephanie, so Stephanie may have been suspended 3 or 4 times, right? So when we look at this, we see that white girls have more suspension occurrences than black females. But I want you to think about that for a minute, because this next slide will puzzle you. Here are expulsions. In the 15-16 school year, there were 317 expulsions. There were 29 expulsions for white girls and 97 for black girls. And when you dig into why are they being expelled, most of the time it was volatile acts, fighting, gang-related. So we talked about attendance and the phenom there. We talked about enrollment. What kind of programs do we have in place for our young ladies? Of course, we have the academics, and this is just not relative to our young ladies, our young men as well. But our advanced placement, IB courses, we're lucky enough to have an all-girls school, and you will hear from Principal Patton a little bit later. And then you look at activities and athletics. How can we get these young ladies involved? And then, of course, we have the arts. And if you're an organization and you know of an activity that would probably need to be up there to really engage our young ladies, I would love to hear from you. Opportunities in providing services. Creating community-wide learning opportunities by partnering with region's top universities. I mean, if you think about where we're nestled in Columbus, one, we're resource rich, but when you think about our higher education institutions, we're also in a very good place. Promoting preconceptual health and health care. Our young ladies, once they get to a certain age, they're sexually active, so we need to make sure that they're healthy and they're behaving in healthy ways. Mentoring opportunities and developing affinity groups for our young girls based on their interest. Some mistakes that we have made in Columbus City Schools is we'll come up with groups and then we'll sit there and wonder why no one's coming, right? Or the first day, a lot of girls will come, and then the second meeting, it'll just start trickling off because they feel like either it's a fad or that we're not really listening to them. And so that's what we have to listen to understand. And providing opportunities for their self-awareness. And what we've identified as challenges are social perceptions and stereotypes, consistency and partnership commitments. We have a lot of partners, but are they consistent? Do they change every year, every 2 years, every 3 years? Funding, and I think that's an issue just globally. Generational poverty, when you don't know any better, when no one in your family has seen any better, then you don't strive for any better. And then the last one, I call it distorted reality. Our young ladies are hungry. They have been deprived. They want to see images of themselves. And they've wanted that for quite some time. If you could imagine going through poverty and you don't see any image of yourself, you're going to gravitate to the first image that you see. And they see these distorted images, newspaper, TV, radio, they hear it in the music. They're not quite sure what they're supposed to be, but they know that something inside of them is telling them that they're supposed to be something, but they can't put their finger on it until they see it. And when they see it, this is what they see. We're adults. I watch this show, but I watch this show with an adult lens. But in many of our young people, this show, Empire, it affirms the image. Wow, there's a pretty African American on TV. Well, it doesn't matter that she's a murderer and she's been to prison. None of that murder. She looks like me. She looks like my auntie. And you're going through puberty and she's built like me. Wow, and she is somebody and I want to be somebody, so I'm going to act like her. So we see that time and time again. And when you think about some of those expulsions and some of those volatile acts, if this is a show that you watch, you see that it was perpetuated. And then remembering that these are young ladies and they're hungry and they're deprived for images that look like them. So say you don't watch Empire. Well, then you watch Scandal. Actually, one of my favorites. Nevertheless, you have to watch Scandal with an adult lens, right? I think Olivia Pope is beautiful. She is brilliant. She is a murderer. She is a mistress, right? But our young people see that. Wow, I can be smart and be a mistress? Get out of here, right? But these are images that are affirming, and all of the women are beautiful and smart. And I'm putting these images before you to say, for instance, Scandal aired in 2012. So if you are 17 years old, you have been watching this for a while. Matter of fact, you start watching this in pre-adolescence, when you were starving, hungry, and didn't know where to turn, because on no other shows, like when I was growing up, I could watch Different World. And I said then, you know what, I'm going to a HBCU. And I did. So those are those self-affirming images that our young ladies are being robbed of. Well, you know Nene Leakes, she's volatile. But this is what they see. And if you're 17 years old and you've been watching this, you've been watching it since you were 10. And then you think that's how you're supposed to act. When I talk about the distorted realities that our young ladies see, these affirming realities, that they think that's how we do business and that's who we are, and I can't be beautiful and not be a mistress or not be a liar or not be a murderer. And then you see that perpetuated in the volatile acts that they are expelled from school, because that's reality. And this is how I'm supposed to dress, right there. You know, I got a body, I start developing, and this is how I want to dress, and I want to be famous, and I want to be liked, and I want everybody to know about me, and I want to be loud, and I want to be everything that I see them being on TV. And these shows started when they were adolescents, when their brain was forming, when they were starved and deprived of those affirming images of what African Americans should be. So real quick, I'm going to do a contextual glossary. When I say belief, you think of a lot of different things, but when I use it, I'm using it that belief is a feeling of trust in the worth or ability of someone with or without the empirical evidence to prove that something is the case with a factual certainty. I don't have to know that this is an amazing woman. When I see her, I'm going to treat her like one. I'm going to treat her with that respect because I believe that she is. And then there's this belief gap, and that's a gap that's held by many in society, that our minority, economically disadvantaged students are females, that they don't have the intellectual efficacy. Because if you think about the distorted realities that our girls are seeing because they're starving, well, people that don't know anything about African American girls are watching those shows, and then they're making up in their minds that that's who we are and what we are. And then power. This commission right here, and the charge of this commission, and each and every one of us sitting in the room, we have the power. We have the power, the ability to impact change. There was a research study way back in the day, 1968. It was a class divided. Jane Elliott did the study, and she took the blue-eyed students in the class, and she said, "You're better than the brown-eyed students in the class." Remember that? That was earth-shattering, because the blue-eyed students started walking around with their chests poked out, feeling like they were better, right? They got longer time at lunch, they got better lunches, and then all of a sudden, when they were getting poor grades before this experiment, their grades start getting better. And so now they're walking around like, you know, I'm it. I am somebody. Well, she did that for a while, and then she switched it. She said, you know, what am I? My eyes are brown. I'm sorry, I messed up. And then she flipped it. And then the brown-eyed students start behaving better, start getting better grades. And what she thought was an experiment in race, it was actually about the psychological condition. Because when we start pouring into our young ladies, when we start putting those images, those affirming images in front of them, then they know who they can be and what they can be. That's a Columbus City School grad. She graduated from Columbia University. You may know her. That's Haley Pruitt. She graduated from Spelman. She is a Columbus City School grad. These are the images we have got to put before our young people. That's a captain in the U.S. Army, a graduate of Brookhaven. You may remember her, friend, from back in the day. That's Cree, yes. Graduate of University of Cincinnati, Jamisha Minifield. Leslie, she graduated from Duke and she's now in med school. These aren't Pegasus running around. These are our girls. And we have to put those self-affirming images in front of them. So who has to believe in them and who has to put these images in front of them on a consistent basis, not just sometimes. And subconsciously, and then you see it happen in the media. The young lady, Naomi, that beat Serena. I don't care whether she's Japanese and Haitian or black. When I look at her, when other people see her, she's brown. Let's celebrate her, right? Instead of trying to pick apart, well, what is she? That doesn't matter. Those self-affirming images, even when we want to celebrate, something happens, there's a breakdown somewhere where we start picking things apart instead of loving people and believing in people, and not just of girls of color, just believing in people in general. And who has to believe? Everybody, parents. When I talked about that belief gap, that's just not out there in society. There are some parents that don't believe. I'm standing here as the chief academic officer for Columbus City Schools. There are teachers that don't believe, right? And our young people don't believe, if you don't believe in them. But if we do that experiment like Jane Elliott, and we treat them all like they are absolutely amazing, they will start to believe. So we have a charge. Staff, students, community members, community partners, this commission right here, and city officials, we have a charge to treat them all like they are absolutely amazing. It has to be all hands in, and we have to work very, very hard to mitigate the belief gap. When you talk about positive images, I had to go there, right? Because what this did for me as a woman was like, wow, you mean I can cut my hair off and be bald and still be beautiful? What? Or I could wear my hair curly and still be beautiful, natural, what? So it's positive images. And even though this was fictitious, there were so many lessons in this movie and so many lessons for people in general. The references I cited, I have everything up there but that Jane Elliott, but if you want to go back and look and refresh your memory on that, that's Jane Elliott, 1968, A Class Divided. Please take a look at that. But now it is my distinct honor to introduce the principal of the girls' school that is going to share with you about how affirming images and how mitigating the belief gap works.
That's the first one. Mm-hmm. Am I good? That's the first one. Yep. Okay.
Hi, I want to just say thank you for giving me this opportunity and this honor to speak for you and to speak on behalf of my young ladies at Columbus City Preparatory School for Girls on the state of the black girl and the quality of life for black girls. So again, we are one of the only public middle schools that is an all-girls school in the state of Ohio and really in the country. So there are not a lot of public traditional middle schools that are all girl. A lot of them are charter or private. We were established in 2010. Our motto is well-read, well-spoken, and poised, and we loop that back into everything that we do. That's that affirming. We are a product of Columbus City Public Schools. We serve 300 students, grades 6 through 8. 77% are African American. How do we support Black girls at Columbus City Prep for Girls? I think one of the strongest things that we do is that we house an advisory program where we talk about issues affecting us as girls, and we do it daily. So we have an allotted time every day for 30 minutes where our young ladies are talking about the things that affect us, and also having affirmations. We do quotes. I do a quote of the week. I highlight a strong African American image every week, and then we go back to advisory and we journal about it and we talk about it. We also research colleges during this time. We talk about social justice. So again, this is our time for our girls to have that opportunity to collaborate and communicate. One of the things that we do, we have an access to mental health. We have a partnership with Children's Behavioral Health Services. We actually have a behavioral therapist that is housed in our building, and she is there 3 days a week, and she has a caseload for students who are having challenges. And so a lot of young ladies deal with anxiety. This is a phenomenon that is extreme. We have a lot of girls that have a fear of not being perfect. We have a lot of issues such as cutting and other things to relieve that pressure. So again, the partnership with Children's Behavioral Health is one outlet that we have and a resource that we use. We also have culturally relevant curriculum. We show that women are queens, warriors, and heroes, and this is not found in our traditional textbooks, but our teachers do supplement the curriculum to let them know that we are a part of history and we are definitely a part of the future. So culturally relevance is really important. We also have mentorships and community partnerships that mirror themselves. We have young ladies from Ohio State, a club called Royalty. We have Aaron Pink. We have a lot of sponsored community partnerships, and our students really want these partnerships. So when we have signups, I'll have 80 to 90 girls signing up for 20 slots. So we try to get as many partnerships as we can based on what they tell us they're interested about. And we also have activities in clubs like meditation, self-defense, and green team. And this also lends itself when we talk about discipline and the fact of decreasing discipline and having different motivations for our young ladies to be in school and to stay positive. Meditation is a tool that they can use, self-defense and that self-discipline. So again, enriching them in ways that they can use to help self-monitor and self-assess where their emotional scale is. Barriers to learning. Equity in learning opportunities. There are a lot of initiatives for the males in our district or in the state or in the country, but just having those equitable learning opportunities for our young lady, like STEM programs and other programs outside of those areas that are not traditionally female-based. So having that exposure to those careers that young ladies are interested in, even vocational, such as welding or other, HVAC or other opportunities. Trauma-infused history. A lot of our students have been exposed to trauma prior to them getting to middle school. The emotion comes out in middle school because now I understand what has happened to me. Now I understand what is the norm. And so how do I deal with all of these emotions that I have inside? And how do I put my mask on and come to school and do my work? So again, really understanding that a lot of the behavior, the outburst, the shutting down, the not doing work, the sleeping in class, this comes from prior trauma, and now that they're exhibiting it. So we talked a little bit about the caregiver to siblings. A lot of our parents are very dependent on our children. They want to call during the middle of the school day, can I talk to my daughter? And it's questions like, where did I leave the keys? Or I need you to, leave the back door open, or just different things that are based in the middle of the day. So how can we work and partner with parents? Because a part of that is parent education. And so we're starting to have parent workshops to help parents understand what anxiety is for children. How can you help us to take the load off, and what resources do we have for you so that your children are lessening on that caretaker role and allowed to be a kid? And so that's what we tell them. From 7:30 to 2:30, you're a kid. So the adult decisions, the adult voice, put that away. learn, have fun. We're here to support you in any way that we can. Again, the mental health challenges, we have a lot of children with depression, a lot of children with anxiety, and it's all tied together. So you have those things that they see on social media and they think that cutting or self-harm, and they can identify it. They will write in my kid's journal, and they will tell a teacher that, yes, I'm self-harming. So they can identify it, and it's almost like their norm. And so how do we help them with normal ways to communicate how they're feeling? In attendance. So again, we encourage our young ladies, our attendance rate, actually from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, our African-American young ladies lead with a high attendance. We're at 95% right now for our young ladies, and that's giving them a reason to be there and helping them catch up when they come back. So it's not, you never feel like you're just behind the 8 ball. And so those are some of the supportive measures that we do at CCPSG to support African-American girls. Workable solutions, hiring of African-American teachers. A 2010 study found out that among students who were classified as overly aggressive, African-Americans were more likely to be disciplined than any other group. However, when they had African-American teachers, this statistic was less. So again, you know, the hiring of African-American teachers and the support in the higher learning institutions to make sure that that curriculum and that support is there for African-Americans to complete those programs and become teachers. My building, we have 77% of our teachers are non-African-American. So again, they may see an African-American teacher during any grade level. If not, it's the support staff, which is leadership and the social worker and secretary. Within that, elimination of implicit bias. Black girls in classrooms across the country have been granted permission to fail by the implicit biases of teachers that lower expectations for them. And that was Dr. Monique Morris, and we did a book study to understand this phenomenon and to really get across to teachers. We teach at grade level. If that student or that young lady is not at grade level, it is your job to scaffold down and explain it in a way that they're going to show growth and get to grade level. It is not okay to get to high school, and because we're only growing you 1 year, you're now at a 7th grade level, but you're a 12th grade student. And so we never let up on our expectations. And you teach the students to never let up on those expectations. And what I love about my students is they'll tell. So if they feel that the teacher is not meeting that expectation, they will come down and tell. And so, again, you have to have them empowered to know what they deserve and then how to advocate for themselves when they don't receive it. We also do restorative practices, which improves relationships between people and communities. And what I like about restorative practice is that it repairs the harm. It makes amends. And it shows that we can still build a healthy relationship afterwards. So when we have an issue, when we're done, we're done. We don't come back and revisit. We don't come back and then say another word on social media and then have to start the conflict resolution all over again. We change the language. So we have, if you have conflict, we have peace circles. So then the students come and ask, I need a peace circle. Can I have a peace circle with another student? And that's where we have an opportunity to talk to each other with an adult present. What I also love is that my students will have peace circles with teachers. And so this takes the disrespect out of the equation because they know they can go in a safe environment with a neutral party and have a discussion about what are the challenges they're having with that teacher. So then that decreases our discipline. So for us, among the traditional middle schools in Columbus City Schools, we have the lowest infraction rate or out-of-school suspensions because a lot of that is resolved before we get to that point. And the teacher recognizes it, so the teacher can then in turn say, can I bring this student down, and we have a conversation. Because again, that piece about being heard is essential. And I asked my students before I came, what would you like for me to tell them, and what would you like for them to know? And they said, we just want to be heard. They're not loud, they just want to be heard. And so a lot of that is when they're loud, having them take a pause, breathe, and say, what is it that you're really trying to say? We can get to the details. What are you trying to say? What do you want us to hear? and then we can start the conversation, and it eliminates the referral, and then it eliminates the consequence because we have the resolution. So again, we practice discipline versus consequence. We do not discipline for attitudes. You cannot write a student up for an attitude. That's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's a teachable moment. It's an opportunity to help them replace that behavior, but there's no need for you to write up a student because of an attitude or insubordination. And so for us to teach the teachers to limit the emotional response. So you don't have to go into character to explain what the student did. You don't have to say it with your eyes rolling and with your neck turning. Address the issue, because that part is not an offense. It's an expression. And so we have to learn the difference. And that's kind of what we focus on also at the girls' school. We have multiple ways to solve conflict. And so we take the emotion out. And so one of the ways that we do that, if I can't talk to you without being emotional and you can't talk to me with being emotional, every student has a go-to person. Every student can identify an adult in our building who is their go-to person. So if you can't talk to me, who's your go-to person? Well, my go-to person is Miss Arrington. Okay, let me get her for you. And then she can communicate, and then I can have a conversation with Miss Arrington, and then I, as the adult, can go back and reach out to the child. And so that's what we have. Every student has a go-to person that they can reach out to. And so we do use that as well. So again, what do they want? They want to be heard, they want to be respected, and they want to be supported. And those are their words. The stereotype of a black girl. Angry black girls grow up to be angry black women. And I don't know how many people in the workforce as a black woman has been deemed an angry black woman, but it stems from being categorized as angry when they're young. They're not angry, they're hurt, they're confused, and they don't know how to express themselves. And so what we teach them is, despite your circumstances, you can make it. So the road might be hard, but we have a great quality of life as black women. And they said, we are not angry, we are strong and work hard for what we have. And that's the display you see, but it's often characterized as angry. And so that is, again, changing that mindset of our young ladies to not see yourselves as angry. Don't allow anyone to characterize you as an angry black girl. So it takes a paradigm shift. How do you resolve conflict? Again, peace circles. Instead of in-school suspension, we have a student center learning lounge, and so this is an opportunity for them. They get all their work. They have a computer. They can listen to girl empowerment videos. They go in and they get their work done. And what I say to them is, now I'm putting my line. I'm allowing you to make up late work. I'm giving you all your work from your classes. Please do not make me look like I'm in the wrong direction. And they do, and so now they often ask, can they come? Can I come to the student center? Can you ask my teachers for my work? Because they like that peace. Because when they go home, a lot of times there's not peace. There's kids running around, there's chores, there's cheerleading practice, mom is on the late shift, and so there's not that peace. And so sometimes they just need a quiet learning area. So we provide that for them. We celebrate diverse cultures, an inclusive environment. We have morning meetings, so every day, we start off with a morning meeting, and we do our school pledge, and we talk about current events. We talk about a great focus. Today we had Pink Out Day, where we talked about breast cancer, and we talked about check your family members, know your history. Here's how to do breast exams, talk to the nurse. So we do things like that as well, and it's an incredible thing. And there's sometimes when I walk up in front of 300 girls and they're not feeling me that morning, and it's okay, because we learn how, again, to adjust. We still have 7 hours together, so let's all stop, let's take a breath, and then we move on. So again, I think that's important. My students said that I have an open door policy. They said I listen, I offer advice and emotional support. I also do wellness checks, where we know what our students' emotional scale is. So when something is off center, we go to them, come eat lunch with me today. How are you doing? I'm just checking in with you. Before I left today, and I thought like, oh, I'm gonna get that moment of peace, I'm gonna reflect. I had conducted 3 safety plans for students who felt like they weren't sure if they wanted to be here because of things that they were dealing with outside of school. And so we do a safety plan to let you know you're safe while you're here, and we want you to be safe while you're home, and here's the connection, and this is what we're gonna do for you, and this is the support we're gonna put in place. And so they're fine with that, and they understand that. And so that's just something that we do at the school. But again, in terms of resources, you know, my background is education, but I've learned that I've had to become aware in mental health. Because if a child comes to me and says that they're having suicidal thoughts, I'm accountable to do a suicide assessment risk. And so again, for us, resources are invaluable because that's a heavy load for us to carry as well. And so those resources need to go because caretakers of trauma-infused young ladies then become trauma-based as well. And so, you know, having us support each other. So our staff has Wellness Wednesdays, and we don't do the instructional piece. We do things like yoga and Uno and different things so that we can make it through the week and we can be strong for our young ladies because we have to take care of ourselves as well. The outcomes of CCPSG girls, the lowest discipline rate, increased attendance. We were rated B in progress for the academic achievement on the state report card. Our students are well prepared for high school. They're equipped with 21st century skills, and they have experience in service learning and social justice. So when they feel that, again, that's that advocacy. We've talked about food deserts. We've talked about refugees and how they are welcomed into our society. We talked about being educated by your zip code. And again, they will, you know, contact members of the community to make things better for themselves as well. So that leads me to what can you do? Please provide increased support that is specific from agencies involved with homelessness, mental health, job services, and parent education. The most frustrating thing is to know that we have to send a student home with no resources or support. We had a family that was homeless at the beginning of the year, and we're about to leave work, and mom is sitting outside, and she has 6 kids. And I said, hey, Mom, are you good? Are you just waiting on your ride? And she was like, well, no, I really don't have a ride. We were put out of our apartment. We don't have anywhere to go. And I was like, okay. So we unpacked our bags. And so we said, let's find the nearest shelter. So we called Van Buren, and literally you're on hold. We were on hold 30 minutes. Click, phone cut off. Call back. So I have a teacher. She was like, well, I have a friend that works here. Let me call. And they're like, no, there's nothing they could do. They can't come to the shelter until a certain time. I believe it's 8 o'clock. They can get there an hour early. It's not promised that they get a bed. Okay, so how's she going to get to the west side? And then is she guaranteed? And she has 5 babies. So again, what are we going to do? So we wind up paying for an Uber. We went and got her food. She said, Miss Patton, we'll just go sit at the park for a couple of hours. I'll just take the kids to the park. I called the Uber. I said, can you come back up at 7? She said, yes. So I called the Uber. The Uber picked her back up at 7. She got to the shelter by 8. She texted me. She said, we're in the shelter. And again, so again, the teacher picked her kids up, brought them to school because she lives close to the shelter, but that connection and that gap until we could get her services, until we could get her connected with Columbus City Schools connection, to get her Project Connect, to get them the resources, to get them the clothes. It's just there's gaps in the agencies and the support. And so I just, really want to imply that if we can get that partnership, Family and Children's Services, you call, you don't know, you're sending kids home into situations that may not be the best. So if we could just get that support. Increase positive self-images citywide so that they can see. We have a lovely mural that's in our school right now, but they need to see that there are African-American artists, there are women artists, there are positive images of ourselves, that I can walk outside or I could be riding in the car with my family and look up and see these wonderful images. Incorporate more organizations that address challenges and provide encouragement for young African American girls. They love the think tanks. They love to go to these different opportunities that they have on the weekends, if we can get more of those. And again, just the local initiative to improve the quality of life for Black girls. I know we have the Black Male Initiative. Our students go, I believe it's in October, and I believe they come to COSI and they have this wonderful day, but there's nothing for young Black girls. And if you watch the news like I do, when you see a young Black male murdered, or you see the stress and the trauma that Black males have, that household is ran by a Black woman. So if we're not raising strong Black women, you're never going to solve the problem for young Black males. Because at the end of the day, that's who's raising our young men. So again, I just implore those things, if you could do those for your considerations. Thank you.
We're going to take 10-minute questions, so if you'd like to come back up, Ms. Gillison, before Ms. Hall come in. So please, if you have questions for these two, please chime away.
So I'd like to just, okay. I'm waiting on the lights.
So what has to happen as we're asking questions, when the video's on, the lights, that bright light doesn't have to be, the bright light doesn't have to be on, but when we are asking questions to our guests, then the bright light has to be on. So just kind of bear with us if you're doing that. And we also, we will make sure that all the presentation that you have, that you receive them online and in color, because when we get them at the very last minute and make changes, we can't adapt that quickly at the print shop. So, but you will all get them online. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gillison, Ms. Patton, for your presentation. I'm really well aware of the work that you are doing in Columbus City Schools with girls, and certainly at the preparatory school. So just in case the commissioners don't know, the work that is going on with Columbus City Schools, and in particular at the girls' school, Ms. Patton talked a little bit about the discipline work that she is doing with girls at her school. Well, that work came to the attention of Dr. Monique Morris, who is the author of Push Out. And Monique was so impressed with what Ms. Patton is doing, because it literally reflects her recommendations on what ought to happen with Black girls around discipline. That PBS came to the school to do a documentary with Ms. Patton and her girls at the school, and with Dr. Morris. And so hopefully that special will be coming out soon. I just wanted to say thank you for the exemplary work that you're doing, making a difference in the lives of Black girls here and now, present time in our city.
I just quickly want to add, you had mentioned 200 girls for the survey.
Oh, you get it to me, we're good. You'll have 300 more. Easy.
And I wanted to thank Judge Gill. I've talked to her people, but I don't think I've ever been in a room with you. But the work that you're doing with the district around truancy, I just wanted to personally thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right.
I'd love to talk to you more about it.
Absolutely.
I do have a question. I was wondering, and it kind of follows up on the Dr. Monique Morris issue. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit more what you are doing to eliminate the implicit biases that you indicated in your slide. Like what practices, what trainings, or if anything like that.
So,
Sorry.
So if you're going to ask a question, please speak into the mic.
I apologize. I'm used to my voice carrying quite a bit. I was wondering if you could elaborate on what you're doing at your school to eliminate the implicit biases that you've seen. I don't know if you're having special trainings or what those sort of things. If you could just elaborate a little bit more, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
you're welcome. We do professional development, so the district allots us so many days for professional development, and for us, it is about presenting the information and then bringing about the awareness. And so we do surveys So every initiative and everything that we do, and when we talk about certain perceptions that we have, I will in turn create a survey, and it shows what the students believe versus what the perception is, and so bringing about that bias, and is it, because it's unconscious, it can be unconscious. And so again, saying, and we had that with the question of standing for the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning. That was something, and teachers went immediately to, you're gonna stand, get up, I don't understand it, this. And we had to go in and say, well, let's look at the reasoning behind, let's talk to the kids, and if they can explain to you why, and what their experiences and what their grandparents' experiences are who are veterans, and you see the difference. And so it's, again, through basic conversation. We have these conversations on a daily basis. And so one professional development, every staff has a mirror. And sometimes we just have to look in the mirror and say, is it us? And why? And so we really hold each other accountable. And we talk about not only implicit bias, but privilege. And so sometimes it's just asking that question, is that privilege? And then that reflection piece comes in. So we just do a lot of reflection because we have to model that for our students as well. It's painful. And that's, again, I think why we have the Wellness Wednesdays to kind of recover, because we have some hard days, because that conversation is necessary. And so when we're teaching slavery and a student says to them, uses the NFL as an example, and the teacher is like, what do you mean? And then we have to talk about, well, what does that mean? Oh, economic slavery. Absolutely. And so again, in everything we do, we have to reflect on it, because we know that this is a barrier or a challenge, so we can never take it off the table. And so that's kind of how we do it. We just keep it in the present, and we try to lower through survey results and through, student input, are we making a difference?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question and comment. So first of all, thank you both, ladies, and I'm really impressed with what you do at the school. I have volunteered at the school in the past, and as a product myself of an all-girls private school, I saw a lot of similarities that I appreciated. I'm kind of moved by what you were saying, because I think about my own journey as a young black girl growing up and the resources I had access to, and how it was still a struggle for me to get to where I am today, but I had people I could lean on, and I had very supportive parents and family members who encouraged me along the way. And I'm concerned about the future, as all of us are around this table, of our community with our youth today, because so many of them don't have that support. And I see it from a public health perspective, whether it's in violence, whether it's in drug use, whether it's in STD rates. I see it frequently of these kids are just exploring and just trying to figure out where they fit in. And so I know you both gave us some advice of what we could do, as our organizations or our agencies, but I guess I would also ask, what can we do personally if there's a request of what individually we could do? I'm sure you're going to say mentoring.
Well, before I go into mentoring, first I want to thank you for that. And then I want to share that we're not all built to be mentors, right? But when you think about what can we do, think about purposeful proximity. We talked about positive imaging. Our kids are on social media like, right? Just maybe some tweets, podcasts, some type of where they can actually see somebody and talk to somebody, so maybe you don't have to be there. Maybe they can just watch little video casts to know of you, to know about your journey, because a lot of this we got to be vulnerable, right? So that they know, I wasn't born like this, right? Single parent household, mom believed in me, and that's all it took. Public schools, mom believed in me and Quinn. Dr. Quinn Capers is my brother, right? It takes somebody to believe, and that's all it is. So when we talk about purposeful proximity, you can pen pal somebody. Now, before we would go out and we would ask for mentors all the time, and then last year they gave me a girl at South High School, and my goodness, right? My hair was relaxed until I started dealing with her. I'm at her house knocking on the door because she's not at school, but she texted me earlier to tell me she was at school. I talked to the principal, and they're like, she hadn't been here in a couple days. I go to her house, I'm knocking on the door, and I'm texting her, and she's like, oh, yeah, I'm in my English class. I'm knocking on the door. She comes to the door, it's me. I'm like, really? But she's in college now because I stayed on her, you know, so yeah, eventually I got to be a mentor, but it's about just letting them know. You could be a pen pal. You could just come by the school. They just need to see you. They need to see you and to open that up so you can build those relationships. And you don't, all the mentors, you don't have to be African American, Judge Gill, and you don't have to be female. They need to hear over and over and over that they are amazing. Yeah, that's what Jane Elliott did in her class. Over a week, kids with poor grades that didn't feel like they were amount to anything, they started getting great grades. So just a little bit of that purposeful proximity, that would be my ask for the group.
And if I can piggyback on that, I'm speaking to the mic as well, but I have a comment and an observation. Because, so one of the things that we talk to a lot of people in the community at Easton is that, you know, report card day is a great way. If you don't have a lot of time, that's one way to get in front of a student 4 times a year. Mm-hmm. That you can really talk to them about career or whatever, but it's an opportunity to talk to them. I enjoy that. I do it at Linden, Mifflin, and a couple other schools. But my observation is this, is that we, as a foundation or even as a property, we find it hard to partner, being an outside business partner with certain schools. Some are great because they have an idea of who they are, what they need, where they're going. Others have no clue, and it's hit, miss. Oh, we want to do this next week. Well, businesses don't plan like that. So my observation is that depending on the administrator, and I understand the things that are going on in schools, you don't have the time to really to sit down and think this through, but if there was a plan, yeah, I'll let you go.
I got a quick remedy for that. So I communicate with our faith-based organizations quite often, and I hear the same thing. Well, the principals say they want help, they want partners, but we can't get in. Well, you're calling the school at 11 o'clock, and the school has 700 kids that they're trying to get through lunch and everything else. So yesterday we had a faith-based fair. It was Records Day, so there were no kids in schools. So we had all of our faith-based partners that wanted to partner, and then we had all of our schools, our administrators that didn't have partners, and we put them in quadrants. North side, east side, west side, and then it was a fair. The ministers and faith-based leaders could walk around and say, oh, well, you know, Mifflin, that side of town is pretty much taken up with New Salem, but they built partners. So I would like to talk with you because we can do a business fair and pick one of those days because we really do want the partnerships. But you see the news, and there's so much going on, and our administrators are outnumbered. She is amazing, but there are 300 young ladies that need her, right? And if you're calling in the middle of the day, I might get back with you, or I might walk out the door and see a parent who is homeless, and I might not get back with you. So let's work to set up some type of business type fair, okay?
Can you add agencies in that too? So that
Yes. All right, yes.
I have a next presenter.
Okay,
the question that I have is that certainly you can see that Ms. Patton at your school is pretty amazing. And I think that the information that you have shared today are certainly would be, we would hope that we could duplicate that. I mean, obviously you're the only all-girls school, but certainly when they're the mixed schools that we can duplicate a lot of the things you talked about today. So my question is, and this may be to Ms. Gillison, is that what would it take for us to be able to have this type of school, the work that Ms. Patton's doing at the other Columbus City schools?
And can I just say real quick, so, and also, to your point, you can give a girl a purpose. And I think that is one of the things in terms of administrators. Ms. Frazier gave me a purpose. We did what we did in the school. We run and we do our daily thing, but she gave me a purpose. She supports me. She checks on me. She gives me opportunities to be that voice which has ignited a passion that I didn't even know that I had. And so I am a mother of a son. When Ms. Gillison called me and said, we have an opening at the girls' school, we would like for you to be there, you're the one, I said, man, I'm like Team Mom. I'm like boys and all of these other things. I don't know if I really do the girl thing. I don't have a lot of female friends. Like, I'm not sure. Can I think about it? She gave me a purpose. And that's all it took. It doesn't take a lot of time. So if you have a business that's coming in and the principal doesn't exactly have that vision, when you make contact with that teacher, when you make contact with that student, when you're just talking about the initial meeting with that administrator, sow that purpose into them. And that will help, and you'll be surprised how far that would go. So I would just say start with that purpose, because I have 2 young ladies here that have just sown into me a purpose that, again, was untapped and that I couldn't have even imagined 5 years ago. So I just want to add that part.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tyson, quickly to your question that you asked. She believed. And every principal has to feel that purpose and believe. As chief academic officer, I can say, yeah, you're going to do it. Behavior precedes belief. And if I can get them to behave, so you don't really have to believe right now, just behave like you do, right? And then our girls will rise, and then, so we are working with restorative practices and trauma-informed practices in our other buildings, but that one right there, please nobody, don't try to steal her from me, okay? Because that one right there. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's give them a hand again. Up next, we have a fascinating young lady, Ms. Hall, who is going to come forward with our next presentation.
Okay. Michael had.
I'm sorry.
One more question. First, thank you both so much. One quick point. So I work for something called the Human Service Chamber, which represents 66 nonprofits. And I appreciate the point that was made about Van Buren and providing services and the challenges that exist there. And I wanted to say, let's talk about how we can work together and make new connections. We have a lot of agencies that do great work with schools already, but let's find more. And the second piece is, and I hear this challenge existing in government agencies, just like the nonprofit agencies, so many are past capacity, and Van Buren's an example. There are 300 children in Van Buren shelter right now, 43 of whom are under the age of 1. So there are significant needs that we know how to meet, but providing the services to meet them is a big challenge too. So I appreciate all the work that you're doing, and let's keep doing it and building it. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Councilwoman Tyson, thank you for your leadership, and to the members of the commission. It's good to see some familiar faces and not so familiar ones. I hope to have an opportunity to meet you. So Dr. Gillison and Ms. Patton are hard acts to follow. So I'll start off with a disclaimer. I'm a lawyer, so love this podium, but I am not an academic. I currently am one of the trustees at CSG. I'm Senior Vice President of Administration and General Counsel at Columbus State. But my love and passion for young women really stem from a very just organic place, and I appreciate the opportunity to present to you today. I visited the Columbus Preparatory School for Girls. It's been a couple of years now ago, and was just floored by what I experienced in the auditorium there with all the young ladies together saying their pledge, and I fell in love with that work and the mission. Dr. Gillison and I have sat down and talked as well, and so you already know this, but those are two wonderful leaders in our community, and we're very lucky to have them in our midst. So the discussion opportunity around Columbus School for Girls really, I think, gives a lens, a different kind of lens into the lives of our Black girls that are in different types of educational settings. And so when I talked to Councilwoman Tyson, she wanted to make sure that we were able to capture the experiences and the needs of a wide swath of young women in our community. And we have, I don't have that full data figure, but I'm sure you could request it. We have Black girls in charter schools, private schools, all across the city that are, I'm sure, in very significant numbers. And then we also have Black girls, as we know, in upper households, income households that have needs that aren't different from the so-called urban environments that we're talking about. And so the opportunity to talk about what all Black girls need, wherever they may be situated. I think we are finding commonalities across socioeconomic status in terms of self-esteem needs, confidence needs, challenges, navigating in majority environments. And so this lens here, from a CSG perspective, I hope you find helpful in the course of your broader examination of Black women, Black girls in this community. So I never would have thought that I would be here. I was a 1991 graduate of CSG, went on to Columbia for undergrad, Fordham for law school, and attending CSG changed the trajectory of my life. I grew up on Franklin Park South, full scholarship kid, and was kind of immediately dropped. Well, I attended Catholic school from preschool up until 6th grade. And the 6th grade teacher there encouraged my grandmother to send me to CSG for a challenging educational environment and experience, and it really changed the trajectory of my life, I believe. But it also created challenges going from a predominantly Black Catholic school environment and shifting into a majority white elite high income environment, and many of the comforts emotionally that I was able to experience in my all Black Catholic school setting were kind of like immediately stripped away, and there was this space of being intellectually and academically on par, but immediately feeling and noting these differences from a social standpoint, and just from an access standpoint and an exposure standpoint and a confidence standpoint. So Columbus School for Girls has gone to great lengths, I believe, in the time I've been there, which feels like Stone Ages ago, but to begin to pay more attention to their entire student body and be responsive and make sure that they're building an inclusive culture for all the young women that are there. So now I'm a trustee, and which is kind of crazy, and I have a nonprofit that I started to help support young women who are receiving high levels of financial aid and are attending the school. And so we provide scholarships, but also provide monthly group mentoring sessions where we talk about things that they may not otherwise be exposed to, financial literacy, peer pressure, social media, etiquette, et cetera. And so I do believe that Columbus School for Girls is making good strides in the direction of providing an inclusive environment for all the young ladies that are there. So for those of you, I'm sure you're aware, CSG is housed in Bexley, serves girls from starting as early as age 3 all the way up through their senior year. Campus in Bexley, very fancy. It looks much better now than what it did when I went. The mission is very much on point and aligned with the mission that you just heard. I won't spend a lot of time on it. We know that single-sex education for young women increases their educational attainment, their confidence exponentially. And so the mission is very much similar to that of Columbus Preparatory School for Girls, and it centers around helping them know who they are as young women and their future potential. All of these things shouldn't be unfamiliar to you. Social and emotional wellness in terms of key components of the mission, culture of opportunity, ensuring that voice. We heard about voice earlier this evening. We know, again, why single-sex education is important. So getting down to some of the brass tacks around the composition of the school. Our 18-19 figures, and I think I have a slide that I need to update, and I'll make sure you get that in terms of financial aid dollars. 564 girls, give or take 1.8 million in financial awarded to about 30% of the students, 35% students of color, and 14% of those are African American students. We have Asian Pacific Islander, Latino, 2%, Middle Eastern 2%, multiracial 8%. You can see here the distribution of young women across the various divisions in the school. 31 different school districts. So my point about we have young women from all over who are coming and attending 51 zip codes. African American students in the age group that I know this commission is focusing on, between 11 and 18, forms 5 through 12. You can see here the breakdown of our students of color. So at very young ages, African American students, African American girls in preschool, 11, elementary, 26, middle school, 21, upper school, 22. And it's interesting because these numbers seem small. They were even smaller when I was there. But again, the interesting thing about CSG, and one of the reasons why I started the Olive Tree Foundation for Girls, CSG actually works very hard to bring in a diverse population and really works to bring in specifically African American girls. They don't stay. Retention is a challenge year over year because of the difficult environment, not because of academics, because if you're trying to get on scholarship, you actually test to get in. So it's not the academic piece of it, it's just navigating the day-to-day challenges of being in that environment. And so retention of Black girls in these elite settings is a key area of focus. It's not enough just to bring them in, it's how do you support them throughout their experience so they can make it through and get the benefit of this great education and go on to do wonderful things. So African American students represent 40% of all students receiving financial aid, and of the 80 African American students we have, 52 or so, 65% receive some form of financial aid, 35% pay full tuition. So again, you're talking, we've got Black girls who have families who are fully able to pay the freight, but still have needs, and then Black girls from families that are either on full tuition or some subset of that. 100% graduation and college acceptance rates for the school overall. This is a figure around our scholarship offers for those heading off to college. Our challenges at the school, as you can imagine, being a Black girl in a predominantly white environment, what that means when you're sitting next to a girl whose parents might have a plane or something like that. For me, I had never seen or experienced some of the levels of wealth that were present in my class. Feeling the need to be an expert on race-related topics because there are so few other girls of color as issues emerge. This continuous challenge of code switching, so I could be one way at CSG, but I kind of better not be that way when I got home. And back into my neighborhood and back into my church. I grew up at Shiloh, and so there's a lot of dynamic at play with that balance, and that carries on, I believe, for Black girls and Black women, even as they then emerge into their higher education environments, and then also into their business respective career environments. And figuring out how an area of focus that the commission might want to consider is how to dig a little deeper in that space around the impact of that code switching and what can be done to shore up our Black girls emotionally and psychologically as they navigate that space. General race-related stress, and then a key aspect is the lack of teachers who look like them. And we heard a little bit about faculty challenges around recruitment. We have that at CSG as well. So a number of supports here: academic support, of course, social emotional support, plenty of counselors. There are a ton of resources at the school available in that space. Affinity groups in middle school, upper school, clubs, and special interest specific areas of focus, financial support. My organization over the past 5 years has contributed and raised about $60,000 for scholarships, and then we have the mentoring program as well, college counseling, et cetera. There is an emphasis, a heightened emphasis on inclusion. I will say that the work is evolving. It's been in the past 5 years or so that CSG has really decided to make a concerted effort in this space. And so emphasizing inclusion, support, and tolerance, adjusting the curriculum, providing safe spaces for conversations on race and identity. Resilience, we know, is and perseverance are emphasized in the curriculum, and we know that resilience is a core theme and tenet in the dynamic at play with our Black girls. Faculty is key. We have challenges in this space for Black faculty across the whole school, which only represents 3%, 119 total. Salaries are a challenge. We do have a little bit of a dynamic with when you are an African American educator, you're in high demand, and situating yourself in an all-white environment may or may not, in that person's opinion, be kind of giving back in the way that they may want to. And then just lack of awareness about independent schools and Columbus being a great place to work, although everybody knows Columbus is a great place to live and work. There are some really targeted efforts around professional development, both for our staff at the school and also for students. One young woman that I mentor as a part of the program was able to participate along with a cohort of others in the Student Diversity Leadership Conference, which is really a wonderful opportunity for exposure to students across the nation. And then there are just a number of conferences and institutes that CSG works to ensure that the staff stay connected to. So I've been on the board now for 2 years, and that was an interesting invitation to receive because, again, I never thought that I would be invited and asked to join in that work, but I think it was, to me, demonstrative of the true commitment that the school has and where they're trying to go in terms of cultivating a diverse representation around the board table. There are some heavy hitters on that board, and they are learning as well. So we are receiving implicit bias training and our own professional development as a board in this space. So we completed an inclusivity, multicultural assessment. We have a parent education committee, and so the parents at the school are working hard in this space, and the board is supportive of that, working on inclusive teaching practices as well. In summary, the objective of this school and the commitment of this school to the Black girls that go there is that they, of course, first and foremost will be academically prepared to go on to college and beyond, but also be prepared to navigate in a world that isn't necessarily always as welcoming, as embracing as your local neighborhood might be, or your home church. And what does it mean to be the only woman in the room, but then also the only Black woman in the room, which is, that's an experience that I deal with on a day-to-day basis, and I do believe the foundational education I received there helped prepare me in those spaces. I'm delighted with the progress that the school is making. If I could offer suggestions in terms of what the commission could think about going forward, it would be to remember the entire spectrum of young Black women that we have in our community, and think about how we can ensure access, whatever programming you might establish, whatever frameworks you might establish, making sure that there are some components, not all might be appropriate to expand broadly, but ensuring that there are components that will be available to Black girls without regard to perhaps like an income criteria or something like that, where you could really make sure that you have broad participation, because I will tell you, our lower middle class, upper middle girls, Black girls in this space need support just as much. So I just appreciate the opportunity and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Just share with the commissioners the work of the Olive Tree Foundation.
I sure will. So just quickly, as I shared, I attended CSG on a full scholarship. It was very challenging, and so now that I have access, I'll say, and resources, I decided, after working with some students there one-on-one, to try to establish an organization that would partner with the school to round out some of the financial aid gaps, so you can have a full tuition, but you still don't receive funding for uniforms, shoes, books, fees, and things like that. So we raise money for what we call incidental scholarships. And then we partnered with the school to identify 15 girls in high school to work with on a monthly basis to provide that additional level of support from kind of a social emotional standpoint. And so we have touched about 27 lives over the past five years. 11 have gone on to graduate and do great things, and we've raised and issued about $60,000 in scholarships. So I've just been really thankful for the support of the community as we grow the program. Oh. And so on this past Sunday, it was a wonderful experience. We had our 5th anniversary, and 4 girls did TED Talks. Ruth Milligan, some of you may know her, who does TEDx Columbus, trained 4 of the girls from Olive Tree. They got up on the stage and they delivered talks about what they need as young women at this point and stage in their lives. It was a really powerful program. WOSU did videotape it, and I'd be happy to provide the commission with the footage from that event.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
I really enjoyed your presentation.
Oh,
I was wondering, we had the listening sessions with girls from all across the city, and some of the themes that came out, bullying, social media, self-confidence, their appreciation of their blackness. I was wondering if the black girls in that predominantly white environment, as a trustee, have you heard of those themes, and how has the school kind of addressed bullying or the handling social media, or just them appreciation of who they are and how they look, and not having, that they're unique and they're special just how they are, and not having to change a thing?
We absolutely hear that, and at the sessions we have monthly with the girls that are in Olive Tree, the 15 girls, it is a common theme. And we work hard. We have a facilitator from the Boys and Girls Club who knows this stuff and actually knows what she's talking about. And so we really work hard to shore up the young women in that confidence space, help them think about how to communicate in an effective manner, how to issue spot challenges, how to use their resources and leverage those. The school broadly is really focused on it as well. There's a kind of a mean girls perception, and I would say that nowadays from a social media standpoint, sometimes it really is the reality. And so in an environment like CSU where you already have young women who are of privilege, and it is something that they do try to stay very mindful of and kind of constantly survey from a climate perspective, and have open conversations about it.
I'm sorry, I might have missed what you said, Kim, about the olive tree, right? Does the young girl have to be on scholarship to participate, even in the mentoring sessions as they get older?
Right. So most of them are, but we also have worked with the school. Some of them don't need any financial assistance at all, but they come from challenging family backgrounds that would suggest that they would benefit well from participating in the program. So it's not entirely socioeconomic status. Yeah.
Fantastic presentation. Thank you for the work you do. I was going to ask you, you were talking about, the stress that you went through, right? Academically, not having the social and emotional support. Are you seeing, and maybe you can't compare, but an increase in anxiety and stress levels and sort of mental health and suicidal thoughts? I mean, it seemed like that would create even more of an emphasis there.
Thank you. It does. I have a son who's 16, and I have to say, if I was a teenager now in this world, it's challenging. And so we really, this work is so important. So the anxiety level is very high. And we also have a bit of a breakdown. There were some supports in place when I was there in the community that because of federal funding that dried up and et cetera, the dynamic of our churches as pillars of support, it isn't quite as strong in some of the other organizations. And so I do feel that there is a heightened level of anxiety, heightened reliance on social media, heightened reliance on avenues and outlets that just aren't as productive and aren't kind of community building. We have just a very insular approach now as people, it's all about selfies and we don't have that interpersonal connection as much anymore. And so what that means is you're just kind of standing on your own, trying to figure it out on your own. And so Olive Tree is essentially an affinity group where they can come together and at least try to lean on one another and work together.
Thank you so much. I know these discussions are so moving and so emotionally driven, so I appreciate everyone's patience with our speakers. Next, coming to the podium, we have Mr. Fox and John Gregory from the Academy for Urban Scholars. Are there any questions I can answer or respond to? One, we just want to remind everyone, for those of you who may have been late coming in, we will send out all the PowerPoints in color, so you will have those. If there's any questions that are not answered by the presenters at the time frame that we have, please don't hesitate to contact us. So without further ado, I'm going to have Mr. Fox and John Gregory come on.
Turn this way. That's it.
All right, go ahead.
So, good evening, and thank you for having us here today and an opportunity to talk about the young ladies at our school. My name is Roger Fox. I'm the school director. Have been in this position for about 2.5 years, and before that I was a math teacher at the school. So all told, I've been working with our clients for about 7 years now, and I am very grateful and appreciative that Mr. Gregory here has allowed me to be part of the school that he founded and part of the work that he started over 25 years ago, serving the urban community and especially African Americans and oftentimes males in particular. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gregory. Well, before I do that, everyone should have a little handout. We wanted to try to keep it as personal and as, I don't know if real is the right word, to talk about the young ladies at our school to help paint a picture about the quality of life our young ladies experience, and then maybe some ideas about what might improve their lives. So, all right, over to you, Mr. Gregory.
He wasn't supposed to turn it over to me. I just came to help the white guy out so he wouldn't be talking about black people. The reason why we started the school was I have been working, Fran Frazier, who's here today, 20 years ago, made me write a grant 7 times before she gave me money to do a welfare to work program. And once I learned, I told her I was an expert on the first day, and she told me, she said, no, brother, you got to go do something first, and then you can become an expert. And so after 20 years, Fran, I'm an expert. And what I figured out was that why were women on public assistance and what happened? So I said, we got to get to these women earlier, because while we talk about crime and violence in our community, the one thing all research has said is that if people are working and if they have education, you have less crime and violence. So 8 years ago, somebody came to me and they said, every 9 seconds, everybody write this down, 9, the number 9. Every 9 seconds, somebody drops out of high school, a kid drops out of high school. And it's very, very more prevalent in the African American community. And so I starting the school, I was like, well, let's see what we can do to this. And what I did not know is how many young people were dropping out of high school and were not going to school at all. Our school has probably about 360 kids. 50% of them are African American women, young ladies. And really, if we had a bigger building, we would have a bigger school. We probably get about 400, 600, 700 applications a year. The ages of the girls are 14 to 21, and then we have a plus 22 program that you can get your high school diploma up to 100. We serve girls 14 to 21 every single day. All the girls in our school are assigned an engagement coach. So they get somebody who has to know their name, their address, their phone number, their mama's name, their grandmama's name, their daddy's name, everything about them they have to know about, the next of kin's name, so that when you don't come to school, we go by your house and get you. Or we find out where you are. And what we find out, and Mr. Fox is going to share with us some of the data, is that a lot of our girls are homeless. 50% of our girls, I had a session with some girls a year ago because they were fighting all the time. And I was like, I'm about done with this fighting stuff. And so I called 10 girls together and I said, talk to me about why are you fighting all the time? And they began to share with me. So I took them over to Franklin Park. We had lunch, and 50% of our girls confessed that they had been sexually abused by their uncle, their father, their grandmother, their brothers, friends, what have you. Trauma. A lot of our girls are growing up in areas that are very high crime. A lot of them are couch surfers, which means they're homeless. They're not homeless in the context that we know, but they're homeless in the context of next month they don't know where they're going to be living at. And what's so funny is that they also have little support because a lot of them are coming from homes where their mothers didn't graduate from high school or their mothers had been on public assistance. But these girls, and here's the thing that I like about the girls, is that they're not mandated to come to school. They get up every morning and come to school because they want to come to school, because they want something different. Our girls come into school. They all of our teachers are basically look like Mr. Fox. They're white. But they're all HQT qualified. And by the way, let me say something about Mr. Fox. Mr. Fox does this not because he was a teacher who became a school director. He actually was an actuary. And something in his life, he decided that he wanted to have a greater impact in the community, so he decided to get an education and went back to school and became a teacher, and now he's the school director. And he does it because he cares. Our curriculum, what we know is that this is the 21st century. Every kid learns differently. So girls can come to our school and they can create an individual learning plan, or they can get on a regular learning plan. We are trying to specialize in robotics and all different kinds of things. STNA, we have lots of girls who get in our STNA program. But what we know is that the young girls that we have mothers. One mother came up, bought her daughter's basket of clothes and threw them at the steps of the school and said, if this is where you're going to go, this is where you're going to live. Just today, one girl came in, told me, she said, you know what, I want to confess that I really want to come to school, but I'm running from a domestic violence situation. And so I don't know what I'm going to do, but here's what I want to do. I want to make sure I get a high school diploma. We have girls walk across the stage. We allow them to walk across the stage, have their babies, because we encourage them, even though you're pregnant, come to school and get a high school diploma. The teachers we have 2 teachers to each classroom so that the students their needs are getting addressed. We have mentoring programs, and I can tell you this, is that our mentoring is not the mentoring that you oftentimes encourage. Because what we know is mentoring is not a once-a-week event. It's not I drop by and see you every now and then. Our mentoring is we got to see you all the time. I got to pick you up for church. I got to pick you up for shopping. I got to take you to dinner. I got to talk to you, because girls need somebody to talk to. They need a woman to talk to who has some experience and gone through things. So we have a great mentoring program. We hire, again, I said we spent about $500,000 on supportive service by hiring what we call engagement coaches. And each girl has a female engagement coach. And we also entwine men in that too, because it's very important to me, like even on your commission, it's important that you have an African-American male who's a practitioner. Not somebody who sits and makes decisions, but somebody who's actually in the field grinding, so they can tell you this is what's going on. They can tell you that girls are special in the context. Black girls, all the research says, suffer less than white girls from body image. They're not really all, black girls, they like the fact that they got thick thighs and big butts, all the stuff that white girls are trying to get. Where they suffer from having direction and having somebody who has cuddled them and loved them, because 28% of black children are raised in a two-family household and 76% of white children are raised in a household. So black girls don't have fathers. And they don't have fathers who say, I love you, you're special, you're beautiful, and what have you. So then they run around looking for some man to tell them to validate them. And when they look for some man to validate them, they usually get some thug that said, baby, I want you to be my baby mama, and be your baby mama too. And I usually tell the girls, when I first get with them, my first session with them, I tell them all the time, that over there, that's the dumb one. And you over here, you dumb too, because you ain't got a high school diploma either. And if you have a baby, you're going to have a dumb baby. So here's what we need to do. We need to make sure we get a high school diploma. And so when we are talking about the girls that we serve, we're talking about girls we serve who really, 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 really need a lot of support. Now, the surprising thing is that what we know is that we get girls that come to our school who come from other schools. Now, we're not getting girls who didn't have any education. We're getting girls, and I'm going to tell you this. Fox, one day, we were talking, and he was the math teacher. And he said to me, how did these kids get here and they didn't learn this, and this, and this? So when they come from the schools that they came from, they come with low reading scores, low math scores, and somebody has passed them all along the way. Somebody didn't even make sure that they could read at the right level, or they could write at the right level, or they could articulate themselves. And I have a girl, I have her transcript, and on her transcript, she got F's in every subject except for gym. And so when I called her parents up, I said, did you realize that your daughter's been going to this school right here that's supposed to be a special school, and on her transcripts, she has nothing but F's? Your daughter cannot read. And so I think that when we talk about trauma and what the girls put through, not only is it trauma from what goes on in their environment, it's trauma from the lack of education, a lack of training. I was listening to somebody the other day telling me that we want to focus on 0 to 8 years old, and I was like, so what do you do with all the people past 8 years old who didn't get the training they needed to get? Because it's environmental too. So I take these girls and I send them back to the community, and guess what they get? They get what they have because the people around them don't have the same thing. So that's the other thing is I'm sending you back to your environment. And your environment, well, you can be, every Friday we have a reset because we got to get ready for the next week because we don't know what might happen. But I can tell you this, our school has been open 8 years. We've had 4 or 5 different gangs. We've never had a gang fight in the school. The kids go like, we're going outside. Even today, 2 girls was getting ready to fight. They went down the steps, out the door, across the street. So I called them back in. I was like, what's that about? They said, well, we ain't going to fight in the school, but I'm going to get her outside. Because one of the things we're giving them is we're giving them an opportunity to be respected. And I'm trying to teach them to respect themselves. And Mr. Fox, you're not going to get away without saying anything, so you want to say something?
Yeah, I got a couple of good stories I can throw in. I don't know why I don't learn over time, but I keep following Mr. Gregory, and that obviously is not a good idea. I can convey information pretty well. I know what's going on, but I don't have quite the same public speaking skills as Mr. Gregory. So bear with me. We're going to try to end this on a slower note. But I want to highlight two items that have stuck out to me. And number one is there was a guy who spoke on Oprah recently. She did the trauma special on 60 Minutes, and I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head, but he's a renowned expert on trauma care. He's done it for years. He's written books. He's got all this Bruce Perry. Yeah, Bruce Perry. So he's written all these books. He's an expert. He's a psychologist. He gets paid as much money as he could possibly, really charge. And if you happen to pick up one of his books, they're awesome. The second one is even better because he shrunk down a lot of the chapters that were in the first one, and you can jump right to the juicy stuff. But in there, there's a sentence in there that says, he as a psychologist, he struggles with dealing with trauma care because he tends to get them for once or twice a week for an hour. He can prescribe medicine, so the doses he gets are kind of lumpy. And he said the only way he has seen over his 20 or 30 years, and I don't think he said this on the Oprah show, maybe he did in the website part, but he said the only way to really make an impact is it has to be in tiny little doses day after day after day. And so to me, that's kind of neat that I know we're a school and we're trying to get some diplomas and we're trying to get some college readiness, but I think John gave you a picture of the clients we're serving and the students that come to us. We're really working on trauma care, and we're doing it in little doses all day long. When you're in the trenches like us, you don't see it day to day, and I got to constantly encourage my staff and my teachers. But you do see it over the course of months and over the course of the school year and over a couple of school years. We have graduated over 500 students over the last 7 or 8 years. We graduated 137 last year. Half of them are young black ladies. And so we are making a difference. The ladies do want to succeed. They do want this opportunity. It just takes a little bit of time. We got to overcome some of those academic gaps, and we got to overcome some of the trauma that's in our lives, in our students' lives. And the last story, and this one it kind of drives home on an even bigger picture. I was at the Central Ohio Compact. Had a meeting maybe 2 weeks ago where they were talking about education in particular and how to get kids into the workforce and make Columbus a more successful city. And it also happened, it was the week following a big federal crime bust. So I don't know if you saw 19 young black men from the Near East Side got busted by the justice system and attorney general. Well, a few of those students have been through our doors, and some of them I taught math to, or obviously not as successfully as we'd like, but we do know some of them, and it is from a neighborhood close to our school. So in seeing that story, you can see a map of Ohio and where this Atchison-Trevitt area is, a little neighborhood kind of on the Near East Side. It's about this big, and if you had a big map up there, it would just look like this little dot here. Well, I was at the Central Ohio Compact, and they were going over the poverty statistics and the lack of academic skills. So they were putting a map up there. And so they were highlighting these colors had this amount of poverty and this much crime and that one. And wouldn't you know, that same little dot where they were doing the federal bust of these folks was the exact same dot that reflected the poverty, the crime, the lack of education. So if we don't get it solved at this level or the under 8 level, it comes out somewhere. So we can't as a society continue to think it's okay, it's over there. I know I get in my car at night, I go to my nice little suburb, and I'm not in it all day, but we can't turn a blind eye. And I'll go back to the very original question. It says, what's the current quality of life in our young black girls? It's not very good, the ladies we serve. And I just feel really bad that we couldn't do better. And I think of the wealth that we have and the opportunities we have in a successful city we have. And I just really feel like, and we got some notes in here of some ideas from us. I don't need to keep going about that. But I do think we have a real opportunity here. We got some great leadership, and we have a huge need. And I think we got a lot of programs in place. And it's getting the young ladies navigated into those programs and putting just a little bit more touch to it. Mr. Gregory is world-renowned for his engagement in relationship. That's how we do what we do, is we get the students to trust us and to know us and understand that we do care. That little bit with the programs already in place can really make a big difference. So I guess with that, I'll turn it over to questions.
Mr. Fox and John, I want to thank you for being here. I had the opportunity maybe a couple weeks ago, maybe it was that long ago, but I think a couple weeks ago to attend a celebration for the school, for students at the school. And it was focused on, one, they had a six-week program with Celebrate One. And with boys and girls were within this program, they were graduating from it, as well as they were talking about sexual health. And the young people made presentations at that particular session. And what you realize is that, well, one, we know that sexual health is not really taught in school. So I'm appreciative that it was taught. But to hear the young men and women really talk about, understanding their bodies, talking about domestic violence, which is part of this session, and then understanding for those who have children about the ABCs of safe sleep and all about all the work of Celebrate One. And so I just want to commend you because after listening to the young men and the young women and the understanding, especially about domestic violence for them all both, it was impressive. And so I'm glad that you're going to continue that work because our young people need to understand what those things are. And when when the young man was, well, I don't want to go into all about graphic about sexuality, how do you make a baby, et cetera, but however, they were all learning that at that time. And so, again, you can only do better when you know better. And so I do appreciate the individuals that you are teaching. I went to the graduation this past year. They had 139 graduates and got their diplomas, not their GEDs. And again, as you've heard, some of the students that are coming there have not been in schools, have not done well maybe in other places, but they're doing well there. So you really do have to make sure that you have to meet people where they are and provide the services that they need. So I commend you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
Without further ado, we will have Dr. Houston come up and present for us. And thank you all once again. This is a very, very exciting time for us. And so we just want to make sure that we give all our speakers all of our attention and thank them very much for all the data that they're sharing.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So as we talk about restorative justice practices, I think it's a good time to do a check-in. So if I said, what's your temperature like right now? What would everyone say? Probably negative 35, right? It is absolutely a privilege and an honor to be standing before the commission this evening to present to you. Again, my name is Dr. Maria Houston, and I give leadership to our youth and family treatment program at Columbus Area Integrated Health Services through our Urban Youth Center. And I also have asked Precious Milton, and I'll let her introduce herself, to join me for this presentation. Currently, she is in the role of our prevention coordinator. So she is in the trenches and in placements at our various schools throughout the city. And so I'll just be very transparent this evening because I think we're pretty comfortable and chilly at the same time, right? I was a little intimidated to come and speak before you all, but it's such an exciting time and such a very needed effort. And I say that because this started, I got the opportunity to attend the very first one that was held, and I sat in the corner, right? But it was sort of several weeks after that, I got a call from a good friend of mine who is currently an assistant principal at a high school in a suburban area. And he called me up and he said, "Doc, I don't know what to do." And I said, "Well, what's going on?" He said, "I got a young lady. They're trying to press charges against her." And I said, "Well, okay, well, let's back up. What's going on?" He said, "Well, a football player was bullying a young man, and this young lady was intervening. It kind of got a little out of hand, but she was the one that was targeted as far as the one that was getting the discipline. So because of that, she got agitated and upset. She started kicking some trash cans, and she said, some things, I'm going to just kill everybody." So because of that, this school wanted to press charges against her because they have a zero tolerance. And I'll back up even a step. So this young lady, she is a black girl in a suburban high school. And I'll take 2 steps back And he told me, he said he has a good rapport with this young lady, and he learned that a week prior she was raped and she was drugged. And she had been gone all weekend. And when she returned home, mother was very frustrated and upset with her. I guess this is maybe not the first time that she's been rebellious and, broken some of the home rules. But so mom, regardless of how she presented, sent her to school that Monday morning anyways. She was then peeing blood. She was throwing up. So then they had to take her to the emergency room. This is where they, again, discovered she had been raped and had been drugged. That happened, again, that previous weekend, and so she was back to school the very next day. The next day after that is when that incident happened. So when we talk about behavioral health and education, in my mind, there is no separation. It really has to be this sense of us working together. And so that's why for us it's so important. So Columbus area is a community-based agency that's been around for 50 plus years. And under the leadership of Mr. Anthony Penn, 2 years ago he wanted to expand our services to be able to offer treatment to youth in our family. And so that's when I came on board and I said we need to have a strong presence in the school because that's honestly where a lot of the students are spending their time. And so it's those kind of stories that we hear, and then people are almost frantic and running around and not understanding how do we place kids with the proper needs that that they're presenting with. And so we try to bridge that gap. And so I'll let Precious introduce herself and talk a little bit about the work that she's doing, the great work, I'm biased, yes, she's doing in our school.
Hi, my name is Precious Milton, and I am the coordinator for the schools prevention program for Columbus area. So what I do is go into the schools and we provide school-based groups. We talk about self-esteem, decision-making, dating, relationship skills, basic needs, because after building a rapport with a lot of the young ladies that I have, what I've found is that their basic needs aren't being met. So that affects so many things. For example, I was talking to one of my young ladies today, and I was asking her what she liked about her new boyfriend, because she has a new boyfriend every 2 weeks. So I'm okay, let's figure out, what's going on, and she told me one of the things that she liked about him was the fact that he let her borrow his hoodie because she came to school cold the other day and she doesn't have a proper winter coat or fall jacket. So just something that small has motivated her to like a boy. And these are high school girls, and that can lead to so many other things. So what I try to do is, again, I collect donations all the time and just try to figure out where we can start to help them. And a lot of times it is just their basic needs. Are they living in a shelter? Do they have the proper clothing? Are they eating? Even before I came here, I was just at one of our after-school programs, and even though Dr. Houston was like, can you come here? I'm like, well, I got to make sure I go there first, because they really, really value getting that hot meal in the evenings every day, and I have to be there to make sure I give it to them because it means so much to so many of our young people that they get that. Also, with our school-based stuff, I try to do a roundabout type of groups, take them to the movies. School was out yesterday, so I took the group of young ladies to see The Hate U Give. And in a group today, at the school, I was kind of talking to some of the girls about it, and one of the young ladies said, man, I don't know if anyone's seen the movie, I don't want to give a spoiler, but one of the young ladies said, man, I wish I had a dad like that. And all the young ladies chimed in and said, me too. And then I was like, me too, So I find that is, just some of the things that are kind of hindering our young girls from, getting to greatness. So with our prevention program, we do these groups. We're in several different high schools because my passion is older girls, and I just feel like, if you talk to them in certain ways, the older girls, they just get it. And, with the help of programs like Rise, Sister Rise, and Miss Fran, I take girls to her stuff every year, her conference, and they love it. So I think stuff like that is very, very beneficial. I wish they could go more because they come out of it and the workshops really empower them and kind of help them get some things out that they normally wouldn't get out. So that's really about it.
So we did, in fact, prepare a presentation, but we're family, right? We just wanted you to know who we were. So Precious missed picture day, but this is some of our team members, and I think we really value being a diverse group, not just in our outward appearance, but certainly some of the expertise that we bring. So again, our services that we provide are assessments, individual. We truly stress family counseling. You've all heard the line, you can't send them, you can treat them, but if you send them back to the same dysfunctional environment, nothing really changes, or at least you don't see long-lasting change. We do provide psychiatry services as needed. And some of the things that we've added that we're very excited about is our specialty groups, and that's held both in our schools and at our youth center, and that's our LGBTQAI plus groups and our girl empowerment groups. We have teen NA and AA groups. Those are held on Saturday afternoons. And then we have a new initiative that we've started. I've been trained in a new curriculum that utilizes family systems and CBT techniques, but it infuses hip hop music and culture. We're talking about rap. Say it again.
Say a little bit about CBT.
Cognitive behavioral therapy. So what that model, it uses traditional therapeutic approaches, but it's taking it in the lens of being culturally competent. So kind of looking at the cognitive or the thinking of that child, but a lot of times we want to use the jargon or the language, but they've heard that before, right? Usually when they come to us, this is not the first time, this is not their first rodeo, right? So it's kind of, please talk to me real. And so we use the music to be able to do that, to give them a voice, be able to kind of speak to us in terms of how they're feeling. If it's NWA today, if it's Cardi B, then what's going on. We want to know. Some of our statistics. One of the things I want to point out is that for 15% of our black girls that we are serving have either had or presented with suicidal ideation or attempts. That is very common for a lot of our black girls. And we talk about that the idea of suicide does not discriminate. It's the idea that black people don't commit suicide. Well, yes, in fact, they do. And more of our girls are thinking about it and considering it on a day-to-day basis because they're feeling so hopeless that, as Precious spoke to, their basic needs are not even being met. So they have no hope that things are going to get better. So it's better that I end my life than to continue. One of the things that I'm very proud that our program has been able to do is that 90% of those individuals that get referred to us by the hospitals stay out of the hospital. And again, that's because we really wrap our services around them. It's not meet me at the office. No, we go to the school, similar to the AUS model, that we have to be really in front of them. We've also brokered a lot of relationships throughout the city. It's the idea that my father always said, be an expert in your area, but get a team of other experts, and you're going to be some really good experts, right? And another thing, we really wanted to talk about the challenges and barriers that we're seeing in regards to the services for our youth. Transportation. I cannot emphasize this enough. Our girls just cannot get around. Asking them, to be somewhere is a challenge for them. Mistrust. So that's a fairly kind of broad concept, and you're like, what do you mean? For us, it's distrust in the system. We know that has been embedded in the culture, but also when we think about our parents, it's not that they don't care and they don't want to be involved and come to the schools and kind of talk with us in regards to the mental health of their children, but they've had negative experiences in the educational space themselves. So they don't really want to return to school, and there's a gap there where a lot of times I think Precious builds the relationships from the top down with the administration and the counselors and the teachers, so that they can then see that we're not separate, we're all working together. And then parental denial. So it's one thing for me as an adult to go in and get some services or get some additional support, but then for you to say that my child needs services, then you're saying that I did something wrong, right? And what we're seeing a lot of times for our Black girls that is very different from even our Black boys is that for our Black girls, they carry the stress and burdens of their mothers, of their grandmothers, right? So they're experiencing, yes, trauma, but a lot of chronic stress on a day-to-day basis. I think we can share so many stories about young girls who are taking care of their grandmothers who have to change them, bathe them, who have to take care of their younger siblings. They're the adults, so when they go to school, they're exhausted. Or they're asked to do things, but in their house, they are the adult. So how are you telling me to do things and put away my phone and pay attention?
So to piggyback on that, and I was just talking with Dr. Houston about it, also with the parents having a lot of mistrust with the education system, that has made a lot of them just not value the education system. So there are a lot of parents who just really don't care. At some of the schools I work with the truancy officer, and it's just amazing how many parents just really do not care that their children don't go to school. Like Dr. Houston was saying, I have a young lady who was, talking to me today, just like, I'm expected to be here and do my homework and get stuff done, but I was up till 4:30 in the morning changing my grandmother and bathing her. And then I only got 2 hours of sleep before I had to get back up. And this is something that I do every day, plus I have 5 siblings that I take care of after school. So it's very, very difficult, to ask her to come and perform. But my thing is, I'm trying to build resiliency in them. That's a word that we go over all the time, because I definitely don't want to lie to young Black women about the situation they're in. I can't change their immediate situation, but we can talk about what it means to kind of like be resilient and, what is the long-term goal? And try to stay focused on that to make this situation better in the future, instead of just kind of like complaining about it right now, because right now we can only do what we can do. So.
And another thing is just the not being aware of services. The idea, I think someone had said earlier, just not knowing that we exist. We believe that we're a culturally competent agency, and you've seen just a snippet that wasn't our whole team, of folks ready to serve, and they don't know that we're even here. So in the interest of time, I'm going to kind of keep the conversation going to the meat and potatoes. Okay. So when we talk about the quality of life for Black girls, particularly in our program. We see them as being extremely vulnerable. Our Black girls present as having experienced complex trauma, meaning that there is continuous stressors and trauma that are happening on a day-to-day basis for them. They are presenting with a lot of violence, girl-on-girl violence, poverty, substance use, simply just medicating themselves. I had a young lady who was prescribed medications, and I was asking her, how is the medication working for her? And she said, well, I stopped taking it. And I said, okay. And she said, well, we had a good relationship. She said, I'll just tell you, I'm smoking marijuana. And I said, okay. And I said, well, does your mom know about this? Well, yeah, my mom got it for me. Yeah. So that's what I'm dealing with. Hospitalizations, increased number, parental discord. I think Precious was sharing a story with me the other day about a young lady who her mom got a new boyfriend, and so she doesn't see mom anymore. Mom is in the bedroom with the door closed, and that's it. So there's a lot of conflict between the Black girls and their families. And again, it's because I believe our families are just extremely overwhelmed. So some of the suggestions that we came up for the commission, and this was a tough one because I think there's so many, right? But I think there's so many good things already happening. But the things we did come up with was to continue and to expand community initiatives just simply to empower Black girls, to improve the image and the idea of being a Black girl is okay. Just, I think that simple tagline that being a Black girl is a good thing. So we can kind of get on horns and go around the city and say that. That would be great. I'll be down for that, as long as it's warm outside. One thing that's certainly dear to my heart is really increasing the number of Black mental health professionals. I cannot tell you enough. Actually, when I was starting out in the field, I felt, as the kids say, I felt some kind of way when kids would say, well, I want to work with you because you're Black. Mm-hmm. And I want to be like, I thought it was because I'm intelligent and I know, I'm skillful. No, it's because you're Black. And I like your hair. Okay. But now I accept that and that's okay, right? That's okay. So the representation is so important. And I can't tell you, I had a parent maybe about a month ago say that she just simply Googled a Black therapist in Columbus, and thank the Lord, we popped up, and she said, I want my child to come here. So it's important. And so we need to increase the face of those individuals. I have a Black male counselor I just hired 3 months ago, and we joke and say he's a unicorn. But he really is. And I said, please don't leave me, But why is that? Why is that? And then also, this is not new, but providing financial resources for implementation of community-based interventions. And really what I mean by that is not just kind of giving money to give money, but what we have found is there are some families that are just not going to come into the office and sign up their children. They're not going to give their insurance information. They're not going to give you their social security number and their ID. They're not going to do that. But yet these children, these Black girls, still need services. So is there a way that we can still serve them and not have to bill, right? Not still have to, bill their Medicaid. So if there was some way to still be able to provide this therapeutic space, right? These therapeutic interventions. If I can come to your school and run a hip hop heals group, I would love to. We would be there tomorrow, right? But we got to get paid, right? But so if there was funding available for that, I think, it would really break down some of those barriers. So that is what we have. If there was anything you wanted to share?
We also have a closet, so if you ever have any donations, please feel free to donate. I have so many young ladies that need so many different clothing garments that are so many different sizes. I personally, every time I clean out my closet, I donate to the girls and I ask all my friends, but there's never enough, because again, so many of them are just without basic things like, bras. I've bought young ladies bras before, so there's a huge need for things like that.
So thank you very much.
Yes, I have a question.
Uh-oh.
Earlier you mentioned that people don't know about the services. So if someone was interested, contact information.
614.
I'm serious.
No, 614-441-9116. My direct email address is mhouston, that's HOUSTON, at columbus-area.com.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am. Thank you.
And thank you.
It's called the Urban Youth Center. It's located at 1221 East Broad Street. If you know where the Columbus Foundation is, we're directly across from there.
You have a website?
We do have a website. It's columbus-area.com. Yeah, we're also on Instagram and Facebook. That's more for the kids, but we are on those spaces. Yes, ma'am.
First, amazing work you guys are doing. That 92% rate is awesome. The question I had for you guys was, is there a reason why you guys chose CBT therapy over DBT therapy, considering the fact that a lot of our young girls have a lot of complex trauma?
Yes, so this program was actually presented to us from our partners out of Oakland, California and Chicago, Illinois. So CBT is just one component. They also use family systems as another therapeutic intervention. So it's one that they're using. We're actually one of the only Midwest partners that have been trained in it to be able to implement it to fidelity in order to get it to evidence-based. Yeah, so I agree with you. I think DBT would actually be appropriate. And actually the program, in working with Dr. Jalil, who developed the full curriculum out of UIC, allows for us to bring in some of those unique modalities to fit our population. And so that was one of the reasons we wanted to use it, because it wasn't a cookie cutter. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
All right, without further ado, we have our last presenter tonight. It's Ms. Desiree Polk Bland in the house. Please come forward. Ms. Bland will be presenting data and information from Columbus State Community College. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Again, Desiree Polk Bland from Columbus State. And I did bring quite a bit of, I think. Is the presentation up? No. Very good. And we're back. Quite a little data from Columbus State. As a community college, I mean, we have 27,000 students. And so when I was asked to pull data on this population, it actually is a population that we haven't pulled this age range, pulled out explicitly. So from ages 12 to 22, we had 6,258 students. And you can see that there's been some growth in that over the years. So the data starts in 2012, and the population attending Columbus State has increased over the year to 1,196 right now. And I'm going to kind of go through this data quickly, but if they're going to send out the PowerPoint, you'll have it all, because I know that print's pretty small. And then we actually wanted to look at the age ranges to think, who do we have that might still be in high school? So we did this 12 to 16, who might be a recent high school graduate, 17 to 19, and who might be a year or so out of high school, to see what those numbers look like, to see what this range is of who's attending Columbus State. So we just kind of did a breakdown of some age ranges for the college. And then also funding always comes into play. So we looked at who of this population would meet the criteria to be Pell eligible. And we did the same breakdown in age. And so as you can see, from 12 to 16, you have to be a high school graduate to be Pell eligible, right? So there's not many Pell eligible students in that category. But then when you look at the others, 16 and 19 and 20, the Pell eligibility definitely increases. So the majority, between 64 and 61% of the students in these age ranges are indeed meet the income criteria to be Pell eligible students. So then, basically from the previous presentations about academic achievement, ability to read, expulsions, out of school, right, there's a large percentage of students, it all trickles together. So when they get to the college environment, there's this developmental education, this remediation placement. So from a Columbus State perspective, they come in, if they don't have valid SAT, ACT scores, and then there's also some equity issues around who has ACT and SAT scores, we give them a placement test. And then there's a placement in remediation. So when you again look at the breakdown of the age ranges, and the first bar is really remediation free. The second one is they placed in remediation in one subject, which is the predominant one. And then either 2 subjects, 3 subjects, and the last bar is actually we just don't have any placement information on that student. So you can see at least a lot of students are placing in one level of some remedial subject. And I can tell you from my experience at Columbus State, a lot of times it is actually mathematics that is the remedial placement for all students, including this population of students. And so then we did say, like, what are students, what are these black girls pursuing when they come to Columbus State? What's the predominant program of study? And so the breakdown in percentages by age range, again, is here, but we actually did a little bit of comparison on the back end of that, and I can tell you that the black girls are actually, we have Associate of Applied Science degrees, we have Associate of Arts, Associate of Science degrees. And in the simplest component, people perceive the Associate of Art or the Associate of Science degrees as the transfer degrees. Our Associate of Applied Science degrees do transfer. I have to say that or I'll get fired from Columbus State. They do transfer. However, people do see them as the degrees that will give you employability skills to go into the job market. And we're looking at more people not going into the sort of almost transfer opportunity, but the employment opportunity option is the majority of the students. And then we took a look at, okay, how are they advancing? How are they advancing? So the number of developmental courses completed, so that remediation in these age ranges. A lot, and so we look at 6 credit hours, 8 credit hours, or 9 credit hours of remedial classes. That's 2 to 3 classes of remediation. On average, the number of college credits completed, and then the number of semesters they're actually in college, and then the GPAs. And so 2.0 is, of course, sort of that C GPA. I know, you're looking like this is not, I mean, it's not fantastic data, and I would love to tell you as I go on, it gets better. So data is what it is. And so this is what it says for this particular population. You look at retention, same kinds of things, but retention, when students start in general, this is our retention data for all populations, and it is the same. So you start college, people finish 1 to 2 semesters, and then there is this drop of non-completion in the community college system, and that is for multiple reasons. Some start for whatever, they just want to get a certificate, a couple classes, they transfer. So the drop here is for multiple reasons, but for Black girls, it is consistent with the other types of populations that we have at Columbus State. Graduation. So we did graduation rate with sort of any type of credential, so it could have been a certificate or a degree. And we did it for Columbus State, and then we looked at the National Clearinghouse data to say, did they graduate from anywhere? And so when you look at the numbers there, the graduation rates for these age ranges are 5% to 9%, and then if they graduated from any institution, meaning they might have transferred on to a 4-year, got a bachelor's degree, it goes from either, and the percentages of the younger age students, understandable, because they are from 12 to 16, they're starting out, and they might have gotten a certificate but not a degree. But when you get into the 20 to 22, that's the age range where if you are a traditional full-time student, you would be achieving an associate degree or some type of credential, and we're at 31% on that. Okay, so that is what the information says at Columbus State. That's what's happening. The data for this population of Black girls is similar in a lot of ways to the information that we would pull out on white girls in the same category, and some overall. As a community college, the data definitely is not you come in and you graduate. You come in, you take some courses, you go off to get employment, you come in, you then transfer to a 4-year institution. So some of the data, it speaks to, it is what it says, but it is very similar for other populations too. Okay. So some of these success initiatives that Columbus State's are, and so when I say success initiatives, these are overall initiatives for the Columbus State population. So we do have new student orientation program. We do have, so these initiatives that they kind of start before the student becomes a student. So they come to orientation first. We have something that we call College Success Express, where we put students who do place in that remedial range through some boot camp math, reading, writing, and we give them credit for our College Success Skills course. They get the content of that course through a summer to enhance and move up in their placement. And so that's, we've done that for a couple years now, and it's got promising results. We're trying to take that to scale right now. We do have a first-year experience college success skills course. We have our developmental education initiatives, and for developmental education, Columbus State is trying to move away from traditional developmental placement. Developmental placement has shown not to be successful for any population, and significantly for African American students in general, male or female. So this co-requisite initiative, we are now at scale with co-requisite for English, meaning if you have a developmental placement, we have enhanced our actual English class, college level English, added some credits to it, added some of the remediation in, but when a student finishes that course, they have credit for their college English course. They are not taking one semester of remedial English and another semester of college English. It's a co-requisite course, so you do a placement and you get your remediation embedded in that class so that you are getting your college credit, and it is accelerating people along the degree path. And so that has been very successful. The next phase of that is mathematics. Mathematics becomes a little bit more complicated because what happens with math is depending on where you want to go, the math looks different. A previous model at Columbus State was algebra. College algebra was sort of our gateway to everything. Well, that is no more. So it is, if you are going into a field where statistics needs to be your outcome, there's a path to statistics, there's a path to sort of quantitative reasoning as opposed to mathematics, and then there is the traditional algebra calculus route for your STEM programs. So looking at different routes to mathematics in a co-requisite model, so your developmental is built in and geared toward the math that you need to do in your chosen degree program, as opposed to one level of math for all students, which was not a successful model for us. Also, we do have an early alert system. Our faculty use technology to really use the grade book, and then this triggers alerts to academic advisors to do outreach to students to say, hey, come in, you've been missing class. Hey, come in, you didn't do well on that test, let's talk about resources. So it helps us be proactive with students as opposed to waiting to the end of the term to find out they didn't do well in a class. We can find out along the way in the term and do some proactive outreach. And so that system is working well for students. We also have some sort of affinity groups. And this, for the Generation 1 Trailblazers, is about first-generation college students. So first generation, and we have extra programming and extra support. That is a faculty-led group, so our faculty are really invested in working with our first-generation students. We do have honors program. Our honors program is most of the students in there are focused on a STEM profession, but not all. And they do a lot of things in, for community college to do things like undergraduate research and prepare students for transfer and to give them all the honors coursework, the higher function. They are doing a great job with placement and graduation rates onto four-year institutions. We have 3 TRIO programs. First generation low income programs at Columbus State, but our student support services program offers a first year experience for their population of students. So they're serving low income students with disabilities and first generation college students in that program, and do some wraparound supports, mandated interventions with that population of students. We also have tutoring. We have workshops, and then we have service learning opportunities while a student is in the classroom, and they connect the coursework to sort of a volunteer civic engagement opportunity for students. Now, as far as who participates in these initiatives, all of that work, so from 2014 to 2017, the number of Black and African American girls in that age range, 11 to 22, has increased in participating in these initiatives for the college. And that growth in comparison to white girls of that same age is higher. So Black girls are taking advantage and at a higher rate of these interventions. So an increase of 52% over the years of taking part in those interventions. We also have things like career exploration and mentoring initiatives. We have a program called the Women's Connection. We have Scholar Network, which is for former foster youth. And then we have a career services office that offers career counseling, career advising, mentorship, externship, and just employability skills in general. None of these programs are sort of Black girl specific. They are for the institution in a whole. And then participation in these activities, there are a cohort of career exploration activities. So that has definitely increased in a year's time. This is 2016 to 2017 cohort. And so Columbus State is really trying to do a better job at developing this programming, wraparound support, and advertising it so that it does, the participation increases for the populations that we really do want to reach. Okay, and then we do focus on one of the things that we try to pay attention to is tracking low-income families, students into low-income occupations also. So when we talk about career exploration, we want to have broad conversations. So the number of people, and then we also want to have conversations about timing. One of the big things that we get a lot at Columbus State is it is a in the STEM field, but people want to come in and they want to be nurses. Like, we had a large population. Well, there's only so many clinical sites that we can place students in. So when you come in, like, and we don't really, we're changing our nursing process as we speak, but students right now will be admitted to the nursing program for, I think we're into 2021, right? So what are you going to do between now and 2021? And so that profession and what we want to do there, that's great, but we have to have conversations about timing, expense, who's going to pay, what you're going to do. And so we have broader conversations, and we're engaging more in exploring STEM fields, especially this is the number of female participants from 11 to 22 in general. And then the blue bar is Black and African American, and then the other ones is all other races. And so there is an increase of the interest, and this is while in high school. So this is part of our kind of college credit plus population and our partnership with American Electric Power, going into high schools, offering more STEM programs. So the increase is there. So introducing these occupations at a younger age, and again, occupations that then do also transition into either the workforce or four-year degree options for students. And yeah, the AEP credit count success rates. So again, the blue bar is Black, African American, the red is all other races. So when you look at the Black is lower, but it's comparable success rates. And so 60 to 70% are being successful in these courses in their high schools that we offer through this partnership with AEP. And then other outreach in STEM. We have a cybersecurity, like we do a lot of summer camps. We're increasing the number of summer camps, getting people on our campus in the summer. So cybersecurity program. There is some bridge and middle school experiences that we have, Tech Core, Techie, Past Foundation STEM programs. We had the 2018 Girls Soar, which was a STEM and aviation program. And so we're doing a lot more in sort of introducing these sort of what are still known, I guess, as non-traditional occupations, but they're becoming more and more traditional. And then participation in the summer STEM, and this is participation of all. So we're growing these programs. These are not broken down by any type of demographic on this particular slide. Okay. And as far as the questions about the quality of life, so Black girls on our campus are honestly more Pell eligible. So income levels where they're getting Pell. They place into remediation at higher rates, right? They are likely to pursue an applied science degree versus other than transfer degree. They typically at this point earn less credits along the way. So the quality of life is not great, but we're getting better by offering more programs and actually soliciting and talking to certain specific populations about doing more work. And then the last question was about what can the commission do? So part of that is around being able to say to Black girls, this is a possibility and this is what you can do, and connecting with faces that look like them and having sort of mentorship and sponsorship opportunities to even do day in the life of, a day at work for. I mean, Columbus State is always looking for additional partners, and so how do we get our students into other types, so they know what the possibilities are. So we're constantly doing career exploration, and people don't know, what can I be? And so if we all look back on what we went to school for and what we expected to do out of that, and then where we are now, we didn't even know these things existed when we were in school, some of the work that we're doing right now. So it's really about connecting the work that you're all doing right now and letting them know this is a profession, this is a possibility, and you can do it because I'm doing it. And so creating more affinity groups at our institution and getting partners that will help us do that. And the other thing is really around, you know, I'm always looking for things like what is mandated and what is legislated, what happens, and how do we really tackle these barriers that our students and families face. Financial barriers are huge. And the biggest thing for Columbus State really is how do we become better partners? What do you need in your workplaces? What do you need? And then how can we help each other? That's the ask there.
Thank you. Minutes of our meeting, we want to show the survey that's going to go out tomorrow. And let's see, Dr. Butler, you want to quickly, the last 10 minutes, just kind of share the survey and some of the survey questions and
Awesome. So this is a survey that will go live at 6 a.m. So here we just basically tell the respondent that the commission exists and that they should feel free to be honest because we are not collecting any names or associating this with their identities. We also tell them that the survey is about 20 to 30 minutes, which depending on your reading level, we were able to get it down to somewhere around there. So that was a success. And then they have to say their consent for us to use their data in our research and future research. All right, so the first question is how old are you? And the reason we ask how old they are is because depending on the age, the questions are slightly different. So we don't ask, we won't ask younger girls about their employment situation or if they have children. I think that's one, like if you're too young. So we can probably just go next. Nobody is forced to answer any question except this one. So most of the questions I can skip, but we have to, so you have to put that age in. If the person clicks other, we'll tell them thank you, but no thank you. Just because they're not a part of our population. So next. All right. So we ask various demographic questions first. We ask about their race, their zip code, which will be really interesting because that will help us to see some spatial stuff. And we ask about their sexuality on the first page. Rather than, I don't know if everybody wants to go through every question, so I'll tell you the themes that the questions follow after this. After we ask the demographic questions, we have a few themes. We ask questions about their academic achievement, and that includes their attendance, their GPA, access to post-secondary education or perception of access. So do you think you can go to college? Their participation in extracurricular activities, their access to academic support, so who helps you in school or who helped you. If you're older, then we'll ask who helped you. And their experience of school disciplinary measures and their interaction with the judicial system. So we also consider that a part of their academic context. Then we also ask about their economic experience, things that we think will influence their economic experience. We didn't think it would be wise to ask what is your household income because most girls will not know that. So what we ask is what's your mother's occupation? What's your father's occupation? And that will allow us to make some estimate of their economic experience. We ask about who they live with for the same reason. If they're older, we ask them if they're employed. So I think we ask whether they're employed and certain questions around employment. I don't remember the exact questions, but we ask employment questions. We also ask about their access to health care, whether they have health insurance, and whether they've been to the doctor for any checkups or the dentist for any checkups within the last year, because that also is a reflection of their economic experience and their economic well-being. Then we go on to ask emotional support questions. You know, have you ever spoken to a mental health professional? Have you been bullied? Are you willing to speak to a mental health professional? If not, what would make you more willing to speak to a mental health professional? We ask those sorts of questions. We ask about perceived levels of happiness. How often do you think you are happy? Because we may look at their life and think, oh, this is horrible. And they may think, actually, I'm fine. So we want to get a certain sense of their perceived level of happiness, their struggles with depression and anxiety, and their various support networks, including community, their family, and their religious participation in religious institutions. Then the survey ends with asking some of the harder questions. We tried to reserve some of the harder questions till the end, just because, you know, maybe they'll get to think that we've gotten to know each other through the first few questions. But we ask questions that will allow us to calculate their ACE scores, so their level of adverse childhood experience. We ask them about their experience with domestic violence and with sexual trauma and with general neglect, experience with their parents doing drugs, and those kind of harder questions we ask at the end. And that will allow us to get a sense of how trauma is impacting our population. So, yes. We did not get to cover everything that is important, and we have to, sort of keep saying that there are important things that are not in this survey. But we've tried to hit on some of the fundamental aspects of human life, and we wanted to keep it doable. And my team and I are proud to be able to have a survey that only takes 20 to 30 minutes and will allow us to say something meaningful about your life experience. Yes.
What are you going to do with the results from the survey?
Okay, so the results from the survey will be included in our report. First, so that's a short answer. It will be included in our report. We're hoping that we will see certain patterns and challenges that will rise to the surface. And the report will, through working with researchers and with practitioners, we'll sort of figure out, okay, what are the challenges that have risen to the surface? And then we as researchers will make recommendations based on our observation of the patterns in the data. But then we will bring it back to you and Council Member Tyson and this commission for you to then say, okay, practically based on these recommendations, what can we do? So it will be included in a pretty comprehensive report at the end.
Question?
Yes.
Can you go back to that to see how it's worded? Because,
yes. Yeah. This wording was actually based on some literature sent to us by one of the commission members, Dr. Wendy Smooth. She's an expert in women and sexuality, gender studies. So we basically explain, while Carl is doing that, we basically explain what transgender means, because we have 11-year-old girls who are taking it who may not be exposed to, the definition. And then we say, based on this definition, what would you consider yourself?
for example, if I was transgender, would that kick me out of the survey if I identified as a boy? So if I was a female transitioning to a boy?
Oh, no. We don't ask. So there's no question, actually, apart from that transgender question, that asks you about your gender. Okay, so that you would say there that you're transgender, and it would just move on to the next. Pardon? Okay, so scroll down. Okay, so I am transgender and I identify as a boy or a man. It would not kick you out of the survey. We will still accept responses, but then we will sort of have to figure out how we treat that response. There are flyers that I would like to show you. So, in addition to getting a link in your inbox, which I'm assuming everybody will get a link of the survey, we will also have these flyers going around, and we did a shortened URL so that people can quickly put it into their phones. But if you click on this link when you go live, or if a girl clicks on the link, she will be able to complete a survey in the comfort of her home or in school, in whatever context she exists. We're also going to have paper surveys for certain special populations who may not have ready access to electronic resources. So we're working on that as well.
Will we get an email on that?
Yes, on this with a link
to the paper surveys if we need to print them to give them to.
Oh, you would like? Yeah, Pat can definitely. Dr. Lance can definitely.
Paper surveys is to make sure that we're linking with, for example, let's say CHIP, your organization, you want to do paper surveys. And so I think we're either going to train a few more people to be able to be the facilitator of the survey, or it's Dr. Butler, it's a number of people in this room that will be coming out and doing those paper surveys. And then there are some people that have enough computers that they will come out, but they'll do it, on the computer. But again, we are making lots of connections to most of the nonprofit organizations in the city of Columbus that work with our girls within the age of 14 to 22 to set up the times to do the surveys. So we want to meet your needs. So if you have a girl group that meets, like Malika, that we could come there and just have the paper survey when they're meeting.
Yeah, the paper surveys would need a little bit more.
Judge Gill.
The paper surveys would need a little bit more logistic sort of discussion with Dr. Lands, because they work a little differently, both in terms of the structure of how the questions line up, but also we would like to talk to you about certain things. So, but we are more than willing to work with you to get the paper surveys over there.
And I want to introduce Becky, who's working with you.
Yes.
And then there's Jill. Where's Jill? Standing up. So Jill is really, you can mention your role, Jill, in all this.
So I'm working with.
Thank you, Samantha. So I'm working with all of you on recruiting girls to take the survey, recruiting girls for the focus groups. I've talked to many of you. I've been stalking you, Sister C. But we just want to make sure that as many girls as possible have access to the survey. So those of you I haven't talked to, I will be in touch with to get links to you to talk about ways to getting your girls to take the survey.
And earlier we mentioned that 200 is our minimum. Okay, but really, I will say 375 is our target, because if we get 375 black girls, that will be a representative sample of all the black girls in Columbus. Okay, representative loosely. Okay, so I know there may be academics in here who would take me up on that, but generally it would be we will be able to say something about the general population if we can get the 375 girls from various income groups, zip codes, and all of that. So we really, really need your support in pushing this, and pushing this to girls from different backgrounds, as somebody mentioned earlier. We want girls from low-income households, but also girls from high-income households. That would be awesome. Oh, Becky is also, you will be seeing Becky a lot. She will be helping me to both analyze this data and to prepare the report that we'll finally publish in the end.
Saying that now. And again, thank you to everyone. Thank you for staying late. And we really do have to get to 375 because we want to make sure that, I know we'll be able to get there. We have a lot of girls and a lot of commitment. So I thank you for being here, and look forward to our next meeting and our next few phone calls from us. Thank you.